Hey, good afternoon, everyone. Todd Nelson here for another fantastic Transition 30 extra call. Not fantastic because I'm on, but because we have Keith Cassant and Lori Norris joining us. And if you know anything about the recording of this video, you will know that it's better left that I am not completely on the video all by myself. So Lori, Keith, thank you so much for joining us again. Keith, as co-host, tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we'll jump right into talking more about Lori and what she has to offer.
Sure. Thanks for having me on today, as always. For those of you that don't know me, very briefly, retired Army, 22 years and some change. Retired about 4 years ago. My transition was extremely tumultuous, and it's a lot of the gray that you see here. I did a lot of the wrong things in my transition, but the great thing about it, the silver lining in all of it, is it taught me a lot of the right things that I needed to do to be successful. And I've been able to take that, bottle it up, and help service members along the way, which is why, yes, I'm so happy to have our honored guest on here today, because she is one of the giants of the transition space. I think this is going to be a great call today.
Absolutely. Lori, obviously 2005, you started out with helping military service members transitioning. 2020, you started the Lessons Learned for Vets. You've got a business, the Get Results Career Service, all kinds of things that you're doing for transitioning service members. Thank you so much for joining the call and for the second time. And we won't talk about that, but this has been such a great honor and privilege. Tell us just a little bit more of your background, and then we'll dive right in.
Yeah, I'm not a veteran and I'm not a military spouse. This is just something that I started out volunteering. I live right down the street from Luke Air Force Base, and I love to teach resume writing. Like, who wants to teach that, right? Nobody wants to learn that. Nobody wants to teach it, but it's a subject that I really enjoy teaching. So I offered to volunteer at Luke Air Force Base, not really knowing a whole lot about the Air Force and their terminology and all of that. I'm the daughter of a veteran, the daughter-in-law, the sister-in-law of veterans, but Army and Marine Corps. And but Luke Air Force Base literally gets every branch of the military coming through there. So I just slowly gained my bilingual status. I speak military and civilian, and I've been volunteering out there really since 2005. I still go out there every once in a while, but I really do a lot more online now through the podcast and through LinkedIn and through Act Now Education and Boots to Books and all of the different organizations I'm a part of, and Transition 30 as well.
Absolutely. And tell us a little bit about the Lessons Learned for Vets before we dive fully in. You're on your fourth season and well over 100 shows. So
yeah, we're let's see, today was an episode released with you, episode 151.
That's true.
And so we cover all aspects of the military transition process. So as I was talking to people who had transitioned and they kind of had, licked their wounds and, struggled through it, and kind of like, Keith said, it was a little bit of a challenge, and they would share things with me, and I would say to them, like, you have to share that with other people so they know. And so I just finally decided, I had a little extra time on my hands in 2020 for some reason. And so I decided to give them a platform to share those lessons. And so I bring on veterans who have already made it through the transition, whether it was 3 months ago or 15 years ago. And they really share, like, where did they struggle? Where did they stumble? What were the keys to their success? And just what did they learn along the way from all of that? And I'm just in there to provide some color commentary and just bring the expertise that I have from, almost 20 years of doing this and speaking the language and bridging that gap between the military and the civilian world. And so I like to call us the curves ahead sign. We don't change the fact that the road is curvy, but we warn you and we give you enough information that you can prepare yourself. And I think I'm all about helping people make informed decisions. It's just like the episode that was released today with you and I. We don't tell them what to do with their finances. Yep. We say, here are some things you need to research so that you make informed decisions. So that's what we're all about.
Excellent. And Keith, I know with you just transitioning 4 years ago, this is still pretty recent in your memory. So I know from a veteran standpoint, there's some questions that can draw out from Lori some of her real expertise. So um, go ahead and let's dive right into our call today, and let's make sure that people know what Lori has to offer.
Yeah, yeah, and I love the curves ahead analogy. I've never
That's
heard that
awesome.
one. So that's a new one for me. Yeah, I like that a lot. And so with that, yeah, like what are some of the biggest curves that you tend to see service members making when they're preparing for their transition?
So it's become a little bit of a running joke of at what point in the episode will Lori say the word focus? But I say it almost every episode, and I think I got you to say it in that episode,
I
Todd.
did. Yeah.
I think you were the first one, so I didn't have to be the one. But you know, I say it so much because it is one of the biggest mistakes that I see veterans make is they go into the military transition job search process having no idea what they're looking for. And so I kind of liken it to fishing in the ocean. Like the Pacific Ocean is a very big place. And if I just go out and I say, I'm going to go catch a fish, and I don't know what kind of fish I want to catch, I don't know what bait does that fish bite on, what tackle do I need? Do I need to go to the bottom of the ocean? Do I need to be on the surface of the ocean? Do I need to go to warm waters or cool waters? And so I'm going to go out fishing and I'm going to come back hungry and sunburned and frustrated. And if you're out there job searching right now and you don't really know what you're looking for, then you're going to say, there are no jobs out there. And I got to say, I call a little bit of BS because I get emails from people every single week who are landing roles because they have a very strategic, targeted, focused approach to their job search. And if you don't know what your focus is, what your target is, like, what do I put on my resume? What
Yeah.
accomplishments do I highlight? How do I translate my skills in a way that will make sense to who I'm trying to attract? Who do I connect with on LinkedIn? What interview answers do I prepare? How do I research my worth in the marketplace? Like all of that flows from focus. And it's why I talk about it so much. It's why I harp on it. Maybe I'm going to get it tattooed. I don't know. Maybe that'd be my first ever tattoo is the word focus on my forehead. No, just kidding. But that's really the biggest thing is like going into it feeling like being like, I'm going to be fine. I'm a veteran. I'll figure it out. And you know what? You will. I know you will. But if you take the time to really strategically hone in on what's next for you, you don't have to decide what you're going to do the rest of your career, but just what are you going to target next?
Mhm.
And you will have a much smoother, less rocky process that will feel a lot less hard and heavy in the transition. So
Yeah, that's great. That's great.
Yeah, that's absolutely great. Yeah, I call it tightening the shot group, right? And which is military speak. So
yeah,
our service members that are listening, yeah, like when we're at the rifle range, you got this giant, when we're quote unquote zeroing our weapon, trying to get it tightened in before we actually go qualify. It's just learning to get the rifle, various techniques and stuff to get those few rounds that we are shooting all in the same area, right? So yeah, you got this wide, cast of where the rounds are hitting. It's going to be a much harder search for you in the long run. So with that said, earlier also you mentioned colorful commentary, right? And it brought me back to our episode that we did in one of the great debates of the topic of whether or not service members necessarily have to take a pay cut, and there's certainly ways around that and all that. So I'm not looking to get into that debate here just now, but I am curious. So in the astronomical number of episodes that you've managed to do, this has been such a great success over the last few years. What are some of the most surprising lessons that you have learned from others on the show?
I started out the show thinking it was going to be all about the job search, right? Like, well, that's what transition's all about is get that job, check it off, right? But I have learned from everyone along the way that military transition, which I wish we weren't calling it that, but it's what it is, right? Military transition is so much more than checking that box and getting a job. It's a culture shift. It's financial decisions. It's finding your way to a new tribe, right? It's so there's so much more to it. it's navigating mental health issues, it's dealing with disability issues and health concerns. So, you know, I don't know that I was that surprised by it, but it's something that we've really honed in on, is that it's so much more than finding a role, checking that box and saying, okay, I'm done, I'm transitioned. Like, I really believe that you're going to be quote unquote transitioning for the rest of your career. And that's okay. And that's the beauty of becoming a civilian employee, if you will, is like your aperture is wide open of all the things you can do. Like, think about yourself, Keith, and how many different types of jobs you've had just in the last few years. And you're like, I tried that. Okay, I was not for me. I'm going to go
Mhm.
over here. And you're like, no, not so much. I'm going to go over here. And now you found like this place that feels like the perfect fit, right? So I feel like you're the bearded Cinderella, possibly. And, you know, so you finally found your slipper that fits. And I want that for everyone. But I want them to know that it's okay to keep trying on new shoes and so that you can find that place that works best for you.
That's awesome.
We
Yeah.
do call him the bearded wonder of truth bombs. So,
Yes.
I think Bearded Cinderella should become his new, you know. So.
We'll just keep tagging them on. If LinkedIn takes away the hashtags, then it'll be a little bit of a
That's right.
challenge. But no, that's awesome. I'll have to add that one to the list for sure. No, that's great insight. I love that. So now you're, as you mentioned, your expertise is the resume piece, right? And I know that you provide services to service members, and it's an amazing service. And you mentioned, like, focus and tightening the shot group, but what would you say to a service member who, because I get this a lot in my mentorship and stuff, and helping service members, they're like, oh, I'm shooting out. I submitted 100 resumes this past week, and I'm not getting a call back. Like, what's wrong? What am I doing wrong? Like, when you hear that? Like, what's one of the first things you tend to experience or find with these service members when they're running into these roadblocks?
Usually, like, people wear that as like this badge of honor. It's like, I submitted 400 resumes and I've only gotten one call, and that's not a badge of honor. That tells me you're doing it incorrectly, right? And so, as you said, like, job searching is a sniper's game. It is not a spray and pray, right? It's not like paper the world with your resume and hope something sticks, right? So you really have to think about quality over quantity. I'm going to tell you right now, if you spend the time to research the company, conduct a SWOT analysis, which stands for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats, and really hone in a resume cover letter package that's targeted to the job and to the company and the needs and qualifications, requirements, that really shows that you can solve their problems. And you take more time with each one. You probably should only be able to send out 5, maybe 10 if you're an overachiever a week. So if you're sending 100 resumes a week, all you're doing is hitting the button, right? Apply, apply, apply. You're putting the same resume out there, most likely, or you're changing it minimally. And I'm not telling you need to rewrite your resume each time, but really think about, like, a couple of weeks ago, I recorded an episode that it's not all about you. It's like taking the focus off of yourself and really thinking about, how can you meet the employer's needs? How can you add value? Why are you the solution to their problems? That's taking the focus off of you and really putting it on them. If you take the time to do that and only send out 5 to 10 a week, you're going to get better results. I would rather get 2 calls from 5 resumes than 1 call from 100 resumes. I like those odds a whole lot better. And that's really the most efficient and effective way to job search.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that you took my sniper's approach analogy. So I'll take the Cinderella and since you have the sniper's thing. So yeah, no, and that's 100% true, right? Yeah. This, I tell folks, study it, like, just like as sniper fights, they study their targets, they stalk their targets, they infiltrate their targets. And that speaks to the networking piece too, right? And the power of that, in addition to an extremely powerful resume. I tell folks it's a 50-50 game. You can do one, but if the other one's not there, it's not nearly as impactful. So
listen, like,
no.
if only good resumes got jobs, we would have a 75% unemployment rate. Resumes are not enough to get you a job. They're
Yeah.
just not. It's really only step one. But a good focused resume that showcases your value is going to expedite the process, like full stop, period. But it's not going to get you a job. And the fact that you're a veteran is not going to get you a job.
That's true.
You've got to show them how you can add value. Why are your skills relevant? Why are your skills valuable to that company? And you've got to translate your terminology. You've really got to help them understand that what you did in the Army is exactly what they need in, the bank that you worked for, that was your first job, right? So that's really the important part.
And I'm going to interject real quick on that, Lori, because several of my clients that have come to me, because I'm not a veteran, just like you, all I saw was numbers like, E9 or CSM or CWO5 or, whatever. And I'm like, good for you. I mean, that sounds impressive. But then when you actually dig into what they actually did, you're like, dude, you've had a stellar career. But that highlights what military folks don't seem to be able to, it's hard for them to grasp on the front side of transition, because they don't understand that when they're talking to somebody like me, it's not that I don't want to understand. I just have never been in the military. So you might be a freaking big deal in the military. Out here, though, you need to be able to tell me, hey, listen, I was in charge of 1,500 people. Gotcha. You are a big deal. You know what I'm saying? And that's the one thing that I see a lot of military folks really, really struggle with. So to your point, you do have to translate that from military to civilian speak. You just do.
Yeah, it's not enough to just say, I was command sergeant major.
Yeah.
Cool. Is that important? I don't know. That's what most people say. The only thing they know about the military, they've read in books or seen on TV or on the movies. And so they think that everybody in the Army sleeps on a hillside with goats, as before they attack the Afghan village. And that's like, everybody's lone survivor that served in the Army. And everybody that
Yeah.
served in the Navy is Tom Cruise flying airplanes. And, I mean, it's just, that's their thought. And it's not their fault. You can't say like, oh, they don't know anything about us. Well, there's a very small percentage, a very elite small percentage of people that have served in the military. But you wouldn't go to a foreign country that doesn't speak English, and you wouldn't get off the airplane and throw your arms up and say, I'm here and I speak English, so everybody needs to speak my language. And not translating your terminology is like you going to France and doing that. No wonder the French hate us, right? So we need to learn to speak their language, and so that we can integrate and we can help them understand. And you're not just doing it for yourself, you're doing it for all of the people that are following behind you as well, so that you're starting to help those civilian employers
100%.
understand the value of military experience.
Yeah. And Keith, I think we've got time for one, maybe two, depending on how long. So what questions do you have?
Well, I was gonna give her kind of an open-ended one, but I just wanted to chime in too, because this hit me, and this is a conversation I find myself having quite a bit. But not only just the jargon, but what I call nondescript language. Like there is a term that the military loves, and it doesn't matter what branch. I've seen it across all the branches. We call it senior leadership. I was a senior leader, or I reported to senior leaders. And I always tell veterans, I'm like, well, what's a senior leader? Like, especially in our, depending on their branch, like, but I'm like a senior leader in an Army company or Marine Corps company, or like a small Navy boat, or like a small Air Force. I don't remember, but it's an E7, right? It's sergeant first class. It's a gunnery sergeant. It's a Navy chief, but E7, right? But a senior leader in an Army division or a Marine Corps division or an air wing in the Air Force or a fleet in the Navy, that's an 06. That's a full bird colonel or a full bird admiral. You're telling me an E7 and an 06 have the same scope and responsibility? No, they don't. So that term senior leaders, it's like be descriptive, tell us what it is you're referring to. and then use their language. I'm like, referring to a EV7, that's a manager. Referring to an 06, that's like, we're talking C-suite at that point. We're talking COO, CEO, all that kind of stuff. So,
Yeah.
well, I don't know, 12,000 person
Yeah.
organization, 2-star
Yeah.
general, but yeah, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But all that to say, yeah. So with that said, what I was going to kind of present to you now is just kind of open-ended thing. So, Todd, the Transition 30 program that he runs is such an amazing program. But he's a stickler with that timer and that 5 minutes that each speaker gets during the call. So I would like to just present you with your 5 minutes beyond your 5 minutes. So, what would you say if somebody were to go back and watch Transition 30 series and see what you normally speak of in the 5 minutes? Here's your chance. What would you build upon? What more would you say beyond those 5?
Well, let's just be honest. I've never kept it to 5 minutes in any of my appearances on the show. He's constantly holding up his phone to the camera,
Like,
and I'm like,
hello.
I don't see anything. I see nothing. I'm looking over here at the camera. I don't see you. So I feel like I'm the inspiration for Transition 30 Extra. Me and Dave Shantz are the inspirations because we never can keep it to 5 minutes or less. I remember when you invited me, Todd, you told me, you're like, I need you to put everything you know into 5 minutes. I'm like, okay, good luck with that. So,
Right.
I think that I just want you to think about the resume. And I want to, that's my goal, is just to help you. I want to demystify the resume for veterans. Because I think that everyone's like, well, just go get the free one. That's great. Those free ones are a great starting point, but they all look and sound alike. And we are not all the same people, and we have not all had the same career in the military. We don't have the same accomplishments. So go and get those free ones, but then I want to teach you how to make it yours. And remember that this is a marketing process, right? So as strategic marketers, we need to figure out who's our customer. That's why I talk about focus so much, right? We need to know what is important to our customer. That's why I want you to do a SWOT analysis on your future employer. And then we need to know, what do we have that's important or valuable to our customer? And then we need to market it. And that's why we need to learn to translate our skills and explain what we did in terms that will make sense and seem relevant to those employers, right? So I once met a veteran at a party, and he's like, I don't know what I'm going to do. All I know how to do is shoot at people. I'm like, okay, well, let's see if we can refine your presentation a little bit. So,
Right.
I want veterans to know that their opportunities are vast, and that the only limit to what you can do in your future is what you think you can do in your future. Now, it might take some stair steps to get there, right? Which is where Keith and I often have a debate, like, do we need to take a salary cut? Do we not? Right? And so I think there might be some stair steps, but just always, I want you to look at what's next. So I'm going to write a resume for what's next after the military. And when I get there, then I'm going to think about what I want to do next. And then I'm going to write a resume for that. And so I don't want you to plan out your entire next half of your career and try to fit it all into one resume. That's not going to work for you, right? But just see it as a stair step, a gradual process of where you're going to go in the future. And the beautiful thing is you can choose. You always have that choice, right? So when you're in a contract for the military, you go where you're told, right? You get voluntold to do a lot of things, and now you have an opening and you can do what you want. And I don't want you to ever feel like you're stuck. Like, honestly, when we recorded last time, which we're not talking about, but we talked about the reason I started doing this is because I am extremely passionate about avoiding veteran underemployment. Right? And an underemployed veteran is one who is underpaid and underutilized. I once met an E9, a Chief Master Sergeant of the Air, coming out of the Air Force, who was making $36,000 in his first job out of the Air Force. And I was like, well, tell me a little bit about how you got into that role. And he's like, honestly, I just fell into it. And I was just so happy to have a job, I took it. I don't want any veterans to feel that way. I don't want you to feel like you have no choice. And so that's why I do what I do, whether it's with my company, Get Results Career Services, whether it's with my education that I'm working on at Next for Vets, or my podcast at Lessons Learned for Vets. So I've pretty much, that is my mission, is to help veterans market themselves effectively. There you go. I don't even know if that was 5 minutes or more, but there you go.
You know what? At this point, it was all about letting people know that you're more than just about the Lessons Learned for Vets podcast. You know, you do have a lot to offer, Lori, and that's what I think is most important in calls like this, because I see a lot of a lot of service members that are trying to get what they can out of people, and I get it. But at the end of the day, the value that you bring, the value that Keith brings, it can't be summarized in 5 minutes, and I think we all understand that. And so it's just been a true honor and a privilege, and hopefully this recording actually makes it through the editing process. But it's been an honor and privilege to have both of you on, but Lori, you especially, just being willing to share everything that you've learned over these since 2005, and it's just been an incredible time, and truly appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me again.
All right, and Keith, as always, great seeing you, man. Great questions. You kept Lori on her toes.
I tried. We could
All right.
have just given her the 30 minutes and she could have just gone. So I'm sure
You're probably right.
All right, see you on the next episode.